I was told that in order for me to do this demo, there were a couple caveats. One, I wasn't allowed to actually cook, which meant cooking requires fire, all right? So they wouldn't let me be around fire. They obviously know me, okay? But they also require that some chefs be present just in case I screw up. They're going to fix it for me. So can I bring the two chefs out? And they hate me right now already. They're in the back. I see you. I see you. I see you. So they're the ones who put all of this together. If I can get Scott to just take a look at this, because this is how my kitchen looks all the time before I cook. Show this. This is actually called mise en place. It's a French term that means put in place. It's the exact same phrase as mass, put in place. Send everything in order. And I think this is a great lesson for us in our faith, in your marriage, because if things are kind of chaotic, which is the kitchen of life, it's because we haven't put things in the right order. Once we know that marriage is first about preparation, as cooking is about preparation, then maybe it'll be a little bit of a smoother transition. But unfortunately, many people don't do marriage preparation in the right way because they haven't bought my book. So what I want you to do is I want you to become true missionaries and put marriage where it belongs, on the most important part of their discernment. Because even though I'm a priest, I'm married to the church. So I gotta be as prepared. By the way, it took me 6 years after college to get married. It takes couples 6 classes to get married. Do you see the difference? And so if we wonder why everything is so screwed up and messed up, it's because we haven't put anything in order. So let me explain that the most important thing for me is that I never want to be boring. I never want to be boring. So in order for me not to be boring, I'm going to give you the definition of boring as I just cut up some strawberries. This is not rocket science. I'm going to tell you what I'm going to make, but before that, I'm going to give you the definition of boring, because how many people think that church is boring? Raise your hand. Just raise your hand. Callum, raise your hand. Good. Because he was the only one telling the truth. The rest of you, I will see in confession, okay? Because the fact is, church can be boring if we don't understand it. Church is boring when we fail to ask questions. So, true boring is answering a question that no one is asking. Answering a question that no one is asking. In other words, people who just talk about stuff without really knowing what anyone is talking about is really the definition of boring. So for us, we have to make sure that we are constantly asking questions. Did I tell you the story about what my dad made me do after Mass one day? Okay, good. See, I'm a professional. I knew that. But I didn't like church. I couldn't stand church. In fact, church for me was one of the most painful experiences ever. In fact, there was one time I told my mom, I know, again, it's surprising that I would be this dramatic, but I was. I said to my mom, I said, Mom, I'm going to kill myself in church. And she looked at me and she said, you picked the right place to do it. That's what she told me. And then I remember telling my dad, I said, Dad, that priest is so boring. And then he pulled me aside and he said, well, if you can do a better job, do it. So I think I'm a priest just to show my dad up. And I remember that same day, we were hanging around church because they just like talking around church. It was so bad. I was already there for an hour, and my mom and dad would make us go to the box and pray. Like the box. Since we're Filipino and we're kind of like, Shiite Catholics in the Philippines, we had to pray with our arms outstretched like this in front of this box, the tabernacle. And I'm like, dude, what are we doing? We just spent an hour here. My mom says, shut up and you pray. Like, weren't we just doing that for a whole hour, lady? And she goes, pray to Jesus in the box. Jesus is in the box. And I looked at my brother and sister and was like, what's he, like a midget or something? I didn't know what that meant. Now, after 22 years of priesthood, do I realize what happened and why Jesus became so small. And I'll tell you why. So that he can fit in our very busy schedules. Jesus became small so that he can be inserted into our very closed minds and our very shrinking hearts and souls. It's amazing that Jesus chose to become small. My man. And so what I just did was I just basically quartered up some strawberries. Again, this is not rocket science. I'm just putting them back because I'm going to be doing something called acidulating these strawberries. And I'm going to acidulate them because they're just basically going to be part of a fruit dessert. So while I can't really cook without fire, I can at least prepare something that is truly kind of going to require some skill, and that is going to be basically making two types of desserts. One's going to be called a macerated berry, and do not think negatively about that word, okay? If I was with a bunch of teenagers, they'd be like, what do you say? And I get it, but maceration is just a type of a curing process. You need some acid and some sugar, and it's going to soften and give extra flavor to the fruit. All right? And it's going to make it taste a lot better, especially since I'm putting liquor in it. That's all I'm saying. The second thing that we are going to do, though, is we are also going to make some tiramisu. But I'm going to make an island version of tiramisu. So it's going to have some coconut cream, some bananas as well. It's going to be delicious. And all I'm doing right now is I'm going to be basically zesting a lemon, and then I'm now just going to juice the lemon, and I'm just going to catch any seeds that come through and tell you that my dad, after that mass, you know what he made me do? He says, come here. And I walked with him, and he takes me to Father, and he said, tell Father what you told me. So I looked at the priest, and I said, Father, I said to my dad that I didn't fully understand the homily. And my dad says, that's not what you said. You tell him the truth. And I said, Father, I said that you were boring. And he turned white, which is amazing because he was already really white, right? And he goes, oh my gosh, I am so sorry. Think about it. Like, I don't think you get ordained to be boring. And I know that. He didn't get ordained to be a boring individual. He got ordained to try to bring people to joy. The unfortunate reality, though, is that he was boring. And so on Wednesday of that week, I remember I was a kid, and I'm going to add basically a little bit of rum to this. Okay, I'm going to add a little bit of rum to this right here, okay? Just a little bit, because rum is very strong. Some of you already know that, okay? And to kind of help wake it all up as well, I'm going to add just a little bit of brown sugar, all right? Just a little bit of brown sugar. And I'm also going to add to it, just a little bit of cinnamon as well as just a little bit of cinnamon, as well as a little bit of vanilla. And this is going to wake things up. If I had salt, I would actually, and this is a nice vanilla, very nice. And you got to be really careful with all this. So it's literally just a drop. And I'm going to actually marinate the berries in all of this. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take some of the blueberries, some of the strawberries, and some bananas as well. And then I'm also going to chiffonade some mint leaves as well. So the priest calls us up, and he invites me to come and have a conversation with him and my parents at his office. And he asked, can I help him write his next homily? So I helped him. Can I tell you something? Next Sunday, he wasn't as boring. He was still boring, but he wasn't as boring. And you know why? because I was actually paying attention. And I've discovered that after doing this ministry of plating grace, I have you buy it all. I realize that maybe one of the things that the church needs to do in its evangelization efforts is stop simply touching people's senses auricularly. For example, when Alan gave his presentation to, by the way, our speakers, do they not just blow you away? Do they not just blow you away? I'm nowhere near as good as that, so I have to cheat and use liquor, okay? That's how I get you interested. But when Alan was doing his thing, didn't your heart just melt when you saw that Steve in Tennessee, I can't remember the last name, and his family, that image of that family, how good looking they were and how tall they were? It was just amazing because I think we have failed our people and made the message only something to be heard rather than something to see. And what does the psalm say? And taste. Taste and see the goodness of the Lord. And so this whole thing of, me simply just cooking, and generally by this point, at this stage of my demonstrations, I would be like, lighting stuff on fire. But since we can't do that, I'm just going to, I'm going to preach hellfire. That's what I'm going to do. Because one of the ways that we bring goodness to this world is by cooking the hell out of it. And cooking the heaven into it. Everyone will always say, my most important ingredient is love. Really? What does that look like and where do you buy it? What they're trying to say is that they have to put passion into all of this. And that's what I'm hoping will happen here. So I'm going to take some of these and I'm just going to put it right in. I'm going to take some of the blueberries, I'm going to put it right in, and then I'm going to take some of these bananas and put it right in, and then I'm just going to let it marinate, macerate. The Italians, when they put the pasta on the sauce, or the sauce, what do they do? Do they put the sauce on the pasta or the pasta in the sauce? I'll tell you, they put the pasta in the sauce. They call it baptism. Because it is there that they're soaking up all the flavors, and that's exactly what we're going to be doing here. So all I'm doing is I'm just going to be quartering out these bananas, and I'm just going to put them right here, and we're going to toss it all together and let that sit, and we are going to just create some nice deliciousness. So we're just going to simply go right through here, put that all together, and in it goes. This dessert is basically almost done. The only thing left is the plating of it all, okay? And so let this just come together. Let it do its job as we now make the tiramisu and keep talking to you about what the big problems are in the church and in marriages in general. Oh, hold on, I forgot. I'm going to just basically do a little chiffonade of these mint leaves. And the way you do this is you basically take the leaves themselves and you kind of put it right on top of the other, and then you basically roll it. If anyone got a reaction, you all are fun, all right? So, the way you do this is you simply roll it all together, not unlike a doobie, not that I would know anything about it. And then you just simply keep your knife pointed down, so the point is in place, and you just basically let the knife do the action. I hope Scott is catching how awesome my knife skills are right now. And so you're basically making very fine little, oh no, don't clap, I'm a professional. And I remember Bobby Flay even telling me, dude, you do have some knife skills. You remember when I beat him? Season 7, episode 1. Basil leaf, the mint leaves go in here. And I said basil because actually basil would have been amazing in here. Some basil leaves in all of this. Some of you are going to get a chance to taste test this too. So again, we're going to let this all just macerate all together. It's not that big of a deal. This is a great dessert for when you are, if you have some company by the poolside And then, or if it's hot, you can just keep this in place and then just throw it on top of some ice cream, all right? So this dessert is done, but we are going to plate it together. I'm going to keep telling you a little bit about how this food and faith and family and friends and my other favorite F word go completely together. And you know what my favorite F word is, right? F-U-N. So I think that's the problem in our Catholic Church, is that people only hear the message. They forget that churches were made beautiful so that you can behold it. And incense, boy, that power of smell, so key to senses. And then, of course, Jesus said, taste and see the goodness of the Lord. And so what we've got to do is make sure that we are allowing our senses to behold the goodness of the Lord. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to put this off to the side because I actually need this little bowl here. And I am going to actually now start making the cream for the tiramisu. But back to the whole knife skills thing. When I beat Bobby Flay, and 2 million people went to my website that night, crashed my website, I had no idea that people cared that a priest can cook. I honestly had no clue. In fact, I got thousands of emails, and one of them was so weird. It was a woman who hadn't been to church. She says, I haven't been to church in 30 years. I saw you on the Food Network last night. I went back to St. Patrick's the next day, went to confession, and received communion for the first time in my life in 30 years. I was just sauteing onions. That's all I was doing. In fact, I didn't think anyone would even care about this. In fact, when this was brought to my attention, and you heard me tell you the other day, it's like over my resurrected body, nobody cares about a priest cooking show. Oh, how wrong I was. This went so viral when they first put it out. I got emails from people in Africa and in German. I mean, like the German guy, he was writing to me in Dutch. I don't speak that. The only thing I recognized was smiley face. He was happy, right? And then the Nigerian guy, he tells me mascarpone, or we could actually use soft Philadelphia cream cheese, okay? So if you don't live in a place where you can get mascarpone, and some of the American tells me, you mean mascarpone? No, it's mascarpone. That's how you pronounce it. But you could actually use soft Philadelphia cream cheese, okay? So you could use that. Now, this guy sends me an email, and he explains that in his country, the men do not cook. A little sour cream, believe it or not. And my measurements are so perfect, as you can see. And he explains, like, in my country, the men do not cook. In fact, if I were to go into the kitchen and cook for my family, my wife would laugh at me. My villagers would shame me. But after discovering your website, platinggrace.com, he said, and reading your materials on the power of food, because I created a whole theology of food thing, he says, I will now brave the shame of my villagers, and I will feed my family. And do you know why? Because if you don't feed them, the devil will. I just got serious up in here. Because in this theology of food, we have to recognize that the devil is also a master chef. The devil is a master of plating sin and making it look good. And you've heard it a few different times and in so many different ways, but I'm going to kind of hopefully nail it one more time. The reason why Eve even went to the devil was because Adam did such a pathetic job of feeding his bride. It was his job to provide for her. He didn't do a good job, so she was like a desperate housewife. And the reality is that the devil knew what Eve was hungering for. So the devil simply took that forbidden fruit and dunked it in chocolate. And how can you resist? Hey, whoa. But why did Adam eat that fruit? Why did Adam eat it? Well, I'll tell you why Adam ate it. It's because the devil knows exactly what Adam hungers for. The devil knows what Adam hungers for. And so simply the devil took the forbidden fruit, wrapped it in bacon, and then dunked it in Viagra-infused barbecue sauce with a beer. And you're all wondering, did Father Leo just say Viagra? Yes, I did. And let me tell you why. For a couple reasons. It ain't a bad word, is it? It's not. It's nothing we should be afraid of or ashamed of. And especially since if you watch those commercials, which are 30-second clips, because they're all put on the back burner of our brains, feeding and forming our consciences, if you'd pay attention to the details, the men who took it have wedding rings on. It ain't a sin. In fact, our Holy Father, St. John Paul II, will say, and I am basically taking some more of these bananas because we're going to be making a kind of a tropical version of this mascarpone. He would say that it's not a sin. It's not, especially if you're doing it within the context of a marriage. And so for us as Catholics, it's not a sin. It might be an opportunity for men to continue to love your wives powerfully. But if it lasts longer than 6 hours, please consult a physician. And I say this only because while it's not a sin in and of itself, it could be used sinfully. And wasn't that the temptation the devil said? The devil said, eat this and you will be omnipotent. And in this world, no man wants to feel impotent. And so they think that they can solve all their problems and all their needs and all their issues with a pill that makes them omnipotent, which is a quality of God, omniscient, omnibenevolent, and omnipotence. So you can see the devil is lying to Adam, and he takes it. But then the women also have the same thing. They take a pill, and by the way, you are what you eat. You eat this pill, and all of your problems go away. You will never get pregnant again because it basically breaks what was working naturally. I'm not a doctor. My dad is. But he would explain this in very simple language, that simply was created originally to help women regain a natural cycle so if they struggled with endometriosis. It could be used to fix what was broken. But now we have abused it like this to the point where women take that, and they just call it the pill, and it would make them completely infertile. So let me show you what's happening in marriage. You have man who is super potent and women who are not. Do you see a challenge here in what is supposed to be the act of true beauty? I could use other hand gestures if you want. But I think I'm driving the point home. We are letting the world tell us how to become one because of food, because of what we put in our mouth. It's food. That pill for the man, that pill for the woman, that's food. And we become what we eat. If you are receiving something that's a pill size, namely the Eucharist, because he is the divine physician, and you're doing that together as a couple, then you're going to have that Holy Communion that you pray for. Isn't that amazing? You are what you eat. Coffee. No. Are you applauding because of coffee? Is that what you're doing? So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be now assembling our little desserts. But before I do this, I want to just kind of create for you the beauty of this kind of cream. Generally, it's mascarpone. And what I'm going to do with it is I'm also going to infuse in it a little bit of coconut milk or coconut cream. Beautiful. And we have to create a consistency so it's not mushy, all right? Now I'm also going to take a little bit of fresh, heavy whipping cream, and I'm going to just place it right in there. And then we're also going to add to it a little bit of sugar, cinnamon, as well as a little bit of cocoa powder. So a little bit of cinnamon, a little bit of cocoa powder, a little bit of brown sugar, and a little bit of cocoa powder, and a little bit of vanilla, as well as one more ingredient, rum. Because I'm Catholic. Because remember, we as Catholics, we have no dietary restrictions. We can eat and drink Everything, thank you, God. And I can't imagine what it was like for those good Jewish boys who never ate a Maryland crab cake. Never. They had never had Texas pork barbecue. Never had they had that. And I can only imagine what it was like for the first time when they ate bacon. Because remember, Jesus says, go into every village and town, say, peace be with you, and if a peaceful person is there, your peace will rest on you. If not, just move on. Don't be dramatic. Just shake the dust off your feet, which is basically language for like, don't carry that baggage with you. Just move on. Don't we need to do that in our world? You know, that's what makes a great chef. If someone complains about their food, they're like, okay, I'm sorry that you didn't enjoy it. There's like thousands of other people who do, and I'm sorry. You know, and just move on. But Jesus also told them, eat what is set before you. Condensed milk. This is going to be freaking delicious, people. It really is, especially since I'm going to add now a little bit of this rum again. Just a little bit. Okay, fine. Okay. So now all I'm going to do is I'm going to whisk this together, and we are now going to just start with the plating process. And I'm going to mash these bananas into it so that it creates a nice cream so that we can put it in a piping bag and start assembling our tiramisu, or at least a version of the tiramisu. So these guys had never eaten bacon. And I know when they tasted bacon for the first time in their life, I know their first reaction was to say, Alleluia, praise you, Jesus Christ. See, we don't have any dietary restrictions. We only have dietary disciplines. And you know what that word discipline means? From the Greek discipulos. It just means student. We need to pay attention to what we're putting into our bodies. We need to be paying attention to what feeds our minds and our souls. What I'm asking you all to do is be like sommeliers or chefs or judges on the Food Network competition. Because they can taste food and they can see what's good and what's bad. We need to be able to do that as well. And we don't. And so right now, I would probably be very boring, but you are actually paying attention to what I'm doing simply because it's fun. Remember, the Catholic Church isn't boring. We know exactly what people are hungering for. We give to them what they want. Christmas, Christmas. We give them a reason to celebrate. Champagne, that's our Catholic monk, Dom Perignon. Champagne, wine, roses, chocolate. That's our Catholic saint, Valentinus, who tells us that true love is sacrifice. He was a martyr. Corned beef, cabbage, green beer. Honestly, well, you know what? I could ask. Callum is insulted right now. Who eats that stuff? Who drinks that stuff? But on that day, I do. Because on that day, I'm Irish. The Olive Garden stole our line. When you're here, you're family. Because if we're eating his body, blood, soul, and divinity, we are blood brothers and sisters, are we not? And so I even changed my name. On that day, I'm Fatherly, Patalinghug. That's who I am on that day. All right, so this is kind of good. I'm going to add a little bit of mascarpone cheese because I want to get this a little thicker. And then I also want to make sure that this is going to be thick enough so that it's kind of like, I don't want to say pasty, but thick, because this should be chilled in the refrigerator as they are kind of going through the whole thing. All right, so we've got this. Some people are going to have some questions, and so to prove that you're not boring, I am going to give you the opportunity to ask some questions. In fact, there is this little microphone right here, and if you want to sit in the front pew, then front seats, you can actually sit there, and you can actually you can ask your question, because I don't want you to be boring, and I don't want to be bored as well. But there's still so much to know, because a lot of people think, how did this all get started? And I will tell you, it got started because I came home from Italy. I knew how to cook. You kind of heard it. My vocation story is odd. I promote pilgrimages simply because I experienced a conversion on a pilgrimage. I went to a place that we're not supposed to talk about. Fine, I'll tell you, it was Medjugorje. And I love it there. I take pilgrims there because something is happening there for sure, like including my confession. which, by the way, is so key to eating a good meal. There was a mom who called me, and she says, Father, well, called me, she actually told me, because it was after Mass one day, and she goes, Father Leo, my kid don't get nothing out of church, and he don't eat broccoli. By the way, that's not how she talked, but that's exactly how she sounded, all right? And so I said, ma'am, that is serious. So I said, how do you prepare your broccoli? And she explained, and I said, with all due respect, that's disgusting. She boils the broccoli, makes the whole house smell like toot, you know. So I gave her a recipe. The kid calls me up and he goes, Father, your broccoli tastes like green chicken nuggets. Victory. And here's what I had to always ask them as well. So now that I know that he's not a kid anymore, he has teeth, why would you boil broccoli? You see, the problem is with the church, we don't actually realize that the message of truth has to be made bite-sizable for people at their proper age level, right? And so we have one mass, and we're all trying to say one thing, and adults don't get it because they're afraid that their kids are bored, and they are because they don't get it at all. So you know what age group, and I've had some success with all of this. You know what age group that I shoot for when I give my talks? Do you know what age group? 14. And I'm not calling you immature, but I'm calling you people who are still young at heart in your church. Oftentimes we stop learning about the church at the age of 14 after we've graduated with confirmation. So I'm finding that people aren't as catechized, and what I have to do is make things bite-sizable, the name of my third book. Because our faith is in desperate need of being we have the beauty of all of faith, but I can't shove it down your throat all at one time. You can't. That's so much truth. You can't handle the truth. If you laughed at that joke, you're old too, okay? Just letting you know. Piping bag with this cream. It's going to be kind of fun, super easy. And it is kind of messy, so I'm going to actually just keep it off to the side for right now, and then I am going to start putting together the tiramisu, and then we're going to actually do some plating so that you all... By the way, is there a couple here by Megan and Andrew? Are they here by any chance? Did they stand me up? Okay, I'm telling you this because I actually... Are they here? Okay. I actually met them at the pool, at the hot tub. Very awkward, priest and hot tub. I just think of it as baptism, though. Okay, so I was there, and it was a little, gosh, dirty thing here. You should always clean your chopping board, especially if you have meat on it prior. But here, I just want to keep it clean. So I'm going to show you chef clean. Ready? That's called confession, all right? That's a conversion experience. Now let's have some fun with the tiramisu, with our lady fingers, wherever they went. Here they are right here. We are going to actually put a little bit of this espresso in a little thing like this, and we're going to actually make 2 or 3 of these little things here, and I've got lady fingers here. Tell you now what we're going to do is we're going to dunk these into each, and I'm going to just basically go 2 levels up so that we don't have it too high, and then we're going to put the cream on top of it, hit it with powdered sugar, as well as a little cayenne, and then some of you are going to get a chance to taste test this, as well as some of the macerated berries, but don't tell the ship. You guys are good, all right? So all I'm going to do, you know what? I should probably use some gloves, too, for this, just so that you all know that cleanliness is next to. Yep. So I started doing this whole plating grace thing, and it's kind of grown into an international movement. My conversion story was in Medjugorje. I started attending church and actually paying attention. And there was a mission preacher who came out, which is why I do a lot of missions. If you're looking for mission preachers, you've got a whole list of us speakers who would love to come to your church. And I do something different. I'll even do a little cooking show as well, kind of what we're doing now, because our churches need to celebrate their faith better. They really do. We need to do a much better job of celebrating our faith. And how do we do that? We do that by bringing back a reason to celebrate. And that reason to celebrate is that I will feed them. We will feed them. Okay, so we've got one layer here. We are going to now pipe just a little bit of this right on top. The bigger the hole, the more is going to come out. This is only one layer, and so I'm only going to do just a very little right here, and we're just going to start just piping onto it. If I was a better pastry chef, I would make some pretty designs, but I'm not a pastry chef. I'm a savory chef. I work with fire and I work fast. Pastry, way too much math. And I'm a bad Asian. I hate numbers, all right? So like me personally, I would rather go by eye and kind of experience rather than just simply measuring all the time. And that patience, though, does make a difference, does it not? So for any of you bakers, hats off to you. Because bakers really is kind of what I would call a little bit of an experience of faith, because it requires precision and it requires patience, which, by the way, is the first part of St. Paul's definition of love. Does he not say love is kind? Let's look at that word, because you're all going through it right now. Now we're going to do another little layer right on top, and another layer of the cream cheese. So just right on top. This couldn't get any simpler. You see, he says, love is patient, love is kind. And I love that, because the word patience comes from the Latin word patior. It's the verb, patior, conjugated passionis, passion. It's where we get the word passion. But what is the verb patior? What's the infinitive of that? It's the verb that literally means to suffer. And that's why the movie The Passion of Christ was all about a man named Jesus suffering. And that's why I always tell couples on their wedding day that today you put on the second ring of marriage, which is the wedding ring. The first ring, you all know, that was the engagement ring. Y'all want to have a good dinner conversation tonight? Ask the people around you, how did they propose? And the guys are like, oh, man. And the girl's like, oh, it was so sweet. And you're going to remember it a little differently. This is what I do in the book. I want you to do that tonight. Find out how you proposed. Because that moment is key to what your intention was as you mise en place the marriage preparation. And what's interesting is that was the first ring, the engagement ring, and then the wedding ring. What is the third ring of marriage? I affectionately call it the suffer ring of marriage. And why? Because you see weddings, they always have like the two rings connected. You know what that is? That's the beginning of a chain. Who wears chains? And you're like, oh, that's exactly how I feel sometimes. And you know what? And that's understandable, because you are, in a sense, servant to the other. But the beauty of our faith is that we don't believe in you being slaves to each other, but rather servants. You literally have wedded yourselves, locked each other, and threw away the key. That's the beauty of our faith. Now, I know that there's a little piece of the banana that's stuck in, so I'm going to clear that and then put the rest on. And here's what we're going to do. Because my organization is called Plating Grace, we have to make sure that this looks graceful. So we're going to put some of these strawberries. These are not marinated in any way. So you know what? Then let me use the marinated ones then, right? So I'm going to take some of these strawberries, and we're just going to put them right in place. And we don't want to do too much. And tweezers are really awesome for something like this, because tweezers will help me to be a little bit more precise with this kind of cooking. And so I'm going to put this here, create a little bit of wall, and you can see how pretty this is looking as it is right now, right? So here we go. We're going to keep putting this together, talking to you about the theology of food, which I know a lot of people think, Father Leo, you're stealing, all of these theologians' ideas. It's theology of the body. We know that, right? We know it's theology of the body. But let me tell you, my idea came first. It's true, too. Before God made the body, what did God make? Food. And in the body, he created hunger, desire, appetite. And he allowed us to eat whatever was there. But we just have to realize that the reason why we have a Savior is because we broke God's diet. And I think what we can do now is realize that God does hear the cries of the poor and our hunger pains. And so you know what God did? God is going to give to this world the greatest Food Network star it has ever known. And you know who that is, right? Who? No, not me. I'm not on the Food Network regularly. I was only there a few times, like when I beat Bobby. So, who is the greatest Food Network star? Alton Brown, that geek? No. Who's the greatest Food Network star? Bobby Flay? I beat Bobby Flay, all right? No. People, you're Catholic. The greatest Food Network star is Jesus. Because he's not a star. He is the uncreated light. He is not a networker. He's an incorporator. He brings you into his body. He's not simply a foodie. He becomes our food. And that's why we have to take this very seriously. We have to take food way more seriously because the world does. The world, we got to realize that if there are neighborhoods that are broken down, what brings and revitalizes? What revitalizes neighborhoods? Restaurants do. We as a church cannot lose sight. We cannot lose sight of, you know what, I do need, chefs, do you happen to have can I get that cloth real quick? I need to do a quick wipe down. I need a cloth. Can that cloth at your hand right now? Can you just give me a cloth? I need a rag to wipe something down. Yep, perfect. Perfect. By the way, these chefs are amazing. I'm just going to use this real quick to wipe it down. And then I'm going to start plating this. The only thing I've got to do at this point is create some whipped cream. Let me show you how to do it. I've got a bowl that has been chilling. I'm going to make this cream now. And all that is just simply heavy whipping cream whisked, okay? And then I'm going to wipe this down, and we're going to taste test this because it is time to eat. I do want to see if any of you have any questions, so feel free and come up. If you don't have any questions, it's because you know everything or you're boring. So come on up and ask your questions because I know you have them. So this theology of food is what I do. There are these flyers that are sitting right here at the base of the stage as well. I'd love for you to take one because it's going to tell you a little bit more of the work that I do from the trips that I lead, which are food-centric trips, as well as not only just my books, but also the TV show, and also my online community called The Academy at platinggrace.com, which is an online community that helps you to stay connected with other good Catholics. It's really a lot of fun, and it helps to support the work that we do with our food truck as well as our evangelization efforts. So as I continue to whisk this, I am going to add a little bit of cayenne pepper, and I'm also going to hit this with some cocoa powder, and then we're going to top this all off as well as some powdered sugar as well. So what I want to do is I want to just do a little bit of clean real quick. Questions. Come on up, ask your questions, because if you don't have any questions now and you ask me in the hallway, I'm going to say, nope, you had your chance. Question, please.
Could you please explain how you're a missionary in a lay, in a secular world?
Correct. So thank you for asking that. I'm glad that you did. I'm a member of a community of consecrated life called Voluntas Dei. Voluntas Dei means the will of God. As a secular institute, we are different from a diocesan priest, even though we are in the secular world like a diocesan priest is. And in this community, our job is to enter into the secular world and be a presence, a leaven of Christ in the midst of the world. So my job is a little different in that I have actually a different kind, there it is right here, a different kind of life altogether, in that I don't live in a parish, but I live just like a normal person in the midst of the world. Powdered sugar, I'm just taking the top, and I'm going to just kind of hit it right on top to give it that nice kind of cocoa, bittersweet, because that is marriage. Sweet with a little bit of bitterness, but that goodness of the cream and that rum. And so my job as a secular institute priest is to enter into the secular world and to spread the good news in the midst of the world. So that's kind of what I do. Other questions, please come on up. Where's my powdered sugar? There you go. I'm going to hit it right here. and we are going to be ready to roll with the taste test, and then I'm going to plate this up as well. So my whole objective is to try to get people to understand how food is a form of love and sacrifice. In fact, it's a liturgy. And so when people say things like, it's so hard to cook for my family, or you love doing it, and you love the way it makes you feel, that's great. But to be honest with you, I don't care how you feel. I care more personally about what you believe it is. It's a liturgy. And the word liturgy means work. That's why when people come to church and they're like, I'm bored, I don't get anything out of church. It's because they're not there to work. They think they're there just to be comfortable. And I'm sorry, you're not there to be comfortable. If you were there to be comfortable, those pews, they would recline, all right? But they don't for that very reason. They don't recline because you are there to do the work of God. Where did that brown sugar? There it is, powdered sugar. This is a little bit of a mess, and the chefs out there are probably like, man, he's a messy cook. But that's why I have people to clean. So this is just whipping cream. I'm just going to whisk it up until it turns into a nice little whip, and then I'm going to actually plate the berries on there. Can I ask you, how many have been ordained, married over 40 years? Anyone here married over 40 years? Oh, that's a lot. That is amazing. Stop, though. How many over 50 years? 50. Okay, good. How about 51? 51 going once, right? How about 52 years? 52 years, 53 years, 53 years, 54 years, 55 years. Okay, so guess what? You all win. Come on up. Now I want to find the least number of years. Under 10 years. Under 10? Under 10? Under 5. Under 5 years? Come on up. Okay, let me explain now, because I know you're going to have some more questions. First of all, did you have a little bit of fun with this presentation? I hope you did. And normally, when I do these presentations, I do a little bit more work, but because they didn't allow me to actually do any fire, I couldn't have a lot of drama. Come on up, just please be careful, help them up. I'm going to give you all a little chance to taste test this. This is one heck of a messy plate, I will be the first to admit. It's only because I don't have a lot of workspace. I'm making excuses for myself, but you know what? Come on up right behind me. Let the people see your good side. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to be plating this up, and let me just keep going like this. First of all, congratulations to you. 5 years under, like 4 years, and 55 years. That is really amazing. Thank you for being here. And and be honest, I mean, this looks like a little messy right now, right? But it's going to be tasty. It probably just like, I'll still eat it. But what I'd rather be doing is I'd be plating grace. But grace isn't always pretty. Look at the cross. It is one of the ugliest things you're ever going to see. But God has a way of transforming it and changing it so that it could be something good for us. And the reality is that faith isn't always attractive. That's why we have to make it bite-sizable for our family and for each other. And so this is coming up nicely. I'm now going to basically take a little bit of this and put it onto a bed. We are going to be putting it all together with the fruit. And here we go, just a little bit on here. So now a lot of people kind of came because they kind of wanted to see the cooking, but they also wanted to know how I beat Bobby. Because technically, I really shouldn't have beat him. I mean, he is an iron flipping chef. I mean, he's an iron chef, right? So how did I beat him? Well, let me tell you how it worked. First of all, I didn't even know that this was going to be happening. If you've ever watched the show, the premise is that he challenges chefs of notoriety. I wasn't famous for anything. And then the Food Network said, you are now. Awkward. And it was really awkward because I'm sitting in a crowd just like this, doing my normal thing, talking and cooking at the same time. This guy walks through. I'm thinking it's Bobby Flay. And then he says, I challenge you to a steak fajita throwdown. And my first reaction was, holy shiitake mushrooms. That's what I said. which is why I named my podcast called Shoot the Shiitake with Father Leo. That's my podcast, actually. So he challenges me, and I basically say to Bobby, I says, you know what, Bobby, with God as my witness, I am not afraid of you. Bring it. And I looked up to the Blessed Mother just for some prayers, and she looked down and she said, you're an idiot. You are an idiot. He's an Iron Chef. You have a culinary background, but he's an Iron Chef. But you know what? They brought out the judges. They didn't know whose was whose. They brought out plate A's, which was mine. They brought out plate Bobby's, which was B's. They tasted plate A, and they said that it was amazing. They said that, the meat melted in their mouth. They said that it was perfectly I'm just saying what they said about A. And they tasted Bobby's, which is B, and they said, it's good. But it was more than good, it was great, right? How did I beat him? Well, I'll tell you after I break these down, because I want to add a little bit of crunch to this. So I'm using basically, as you can see, the same ingredients, but we are making them in two different applications. And we're going to have a little bit of something nice and crunchy right here, so that whenever you eat this, it'll have a little something, and you'd be like, oh, what is that? And you'd be like, that's lady fingers broken up by priest fingers. So I'll tell you how I beat him. Because, when they brought out plate A, which was mine, and plate B's, which was Bobby's, take one of each, please. Here you go. I basically whipped out my rosary, and I started to pray it. There was a priest. Oh, by the way, Bobby had 3 professional chefs helping him. I did not. I had a priest wearing a do-rag helping me. That's all I had. But he pulled out his rosary. He starts praying it. A couple Catholics in the crowd praying it. My mom and dad, one in each hand, double fisting it. They were like, pfft. I even think there was a Muslim. He pulled out his beads and he's like, ah, la, 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 la. And you know what? There is only one God. And if that God wanted me to win, then how could I lose? The reason why I won was because God allowed me to win. Because if I didn't win, I wouldn't be invited here. Who would want to see the loser priest on the Food Network, right? Hey, Callum, get up here. You're going to taste test this too. Hey, chefs, come on up. So, listen, you're going to get a chance to taste test one of these. Which one do you want, the tiramisu, or do you want the whipped cream one? There you go. That's one with the spice on it. Okay. Which one do you want? The tiramisu, and then you're going to take the cream. And did you eat that yet without praying, young lady? You better not. By the way, this is Callum. He is literally my best friend on the ship. We see things eye to eye. I love him dearly. All right. Chefs, come on up. Because this is going to be definitely a picture for Facebook or Instagram, which is basically young people Facebook. All right. Okay. Chef and... Here you go. Here's what Anish and Chef Callum. Callum. Here's this right here, and here's this right here. By the way, did you want to get any beauty shots of this, which is called food porn? And it is. It is. If you don't participate in it, it is that. What I want to make sure that you are doing is you're not making an image of marriage when you go home, but you give marriage so that people can taste and see the goodness that you are learning from all of these basic ingredients, putting them together and creating a masterpiece so that people can taste and see the goodness of the Lord. Blessings on this food, your marriages, your ministries, your work. These guys have been amazing. They deserve this feast. So, caveat. They are going to taste this, and these should all be chilled. So we're just kind of going right into it, okay? So this is not how it should normally be. It should be prettier. It should be, put in different dishes. But you know what? Eventually it's going to turn into you know what. But there is something that will always last, and that's the experience. So your mom and dad might not have been the best cooks, but you ate with each other. And that is what I want you to do. Eat this in memory of Good News Cruise 2022. Give a taste. Go ahead, give a taste test here. And do not lie to a priest. All right. Is it tasty okay? Chef Anisha's like, I'm going to criticize you. It's I got a thumbs up here from these guys. So listen, wait, Jack has not said anything. He got to the strawberry yet, you food snob. I love it. Listen, so, good. Callum went for a second, and so did Chef, so it couldn't be bad. And if you lied to a priest, you're going to hell. No, I'm kidding with you. I'm kidding with you. Let's give them a round of applause. Let's thank them, and I'm going to close with one thought, and then we're going to be out of here. You can make your way back to your seat. You can take this if you want. You take it with you. Take it with you. Anisha's doing the dishes anyway. I don't care. All right. So I'm going to close with this, because you all have just been great. Thank you. Please be sure and pick up a flyer. Text if you want more information. If this is too much reading, text the word food to 33777. Food, 337. 33, you know that's the perfect age of Jesus. 777 because it's better than 666. All right, so food to 33777. And I close with this story because it's true, about a couple who would, buy a loaf of bread every week. Their kids are already out of the house, and so they were just kind of alone. And they would have sandwich day when they get back from the market, and they would make a sandwich. And the husband was in charge of making the sandwich, and they were married for so many years, and he'd been doing this for so many years. And he would always take the butt ends of the bread and make the sandwich for his wife. And the wife just said to him after so many years, I am so sick and tired of you making that sandwich for me. Why do you give me that piece of the bread that I hate so much? And with mortification, because I'm sure that's not what he wanted to do, like the priest doesn't want to bore us, we just have stopped having conversations. Conversations mean conversion. He said, I am so sorry. I made that sandwich for you with that piece of bread because that's my favorite piece of the bun. And I just wanted to give it to you. But he obviously needed still to learn what she is hungering for. So please, go on dates and satisfy each other with God's love, because that's what will satisfy our souls in this life and in the next. God bless. Come on up.